Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome to another Season 7 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today, we're covering Jhin, the Virtuoso.
The stage is set.
Jhin is a champion with very good lane presence from the traps from his captive audience, and he also has a very strong ultimate. He's then got very high scaling because of his passive ability, and very high range abilities from both his W and his ultimate. His passive turns a percentage of his critical strike and bonus attack speed into attack damage, so he's one of the highest attack damage champions in the entire game. Then of course, he's also one of those champions that does have a built-in CC, which is pretty rare for an AD carry, and it comes from his Deadly Flourish. Now due to all these pros, he of course lacks mobility. You can kinda think of him as the traditional sniper, very devastating from a long range, but up close, you can usually kick his ass. Jhin is then a very high skill cap champion that does have slow auto attacks because he doesn't of course get that attack speed because of his passive. He's extremely different from the traditional AD carry, so he takes a lot of time to get used to, and he's got little self-peeling for himself. All in all, he still is a very strong AD carry at the moment, and he can kill you from a very long distance. For your Masteries, you want to go 18 Ferocity and 12 Cunning, grabbing Deathfire Touch as your Keystone Mastery. Since Jhin is a champion who has a ton of attack damage because of his passive, Deathfire Touch can actually deal an absolute ton of damage. It will deal 60% of your bonus attack damage over 4 seconds, which on Jhin is of course going to be a ton. It's easily the best mastery for Jhin, and I wouldn't recommend taking anything else. For my runes, I like to go for attack damage reds, armor yellows, magic resist blues, and attack damage quints. Now you of course also have the option of going for lethality reds instead, but this is something I don't like to do on Jhin too often because I usually don't go for a Yumu's. It is viable, and I do see some people take it, but I definitely prefer the attack damage myself, and it will make your Deathfire Touch do even more damage. For your first summoner spell, you'll want to grab Flash. You're a very squishy champion who is very immobile, and Flash can save your life in all sorts of different situations. It's a 100% requirement on AD carries in today's meta, and Jhin is of course no exception. For your second summoner spell, you're going to want to pick up Heal. It's also 100% required in today's meta since it can save you and your lane partner. You then even have the option of using it offensively for its short duration movement speed if you do need to chase an enemy that is too far away. On Jhin, I would definitely not recommend taking anything else besides Flash and Heal. Now let's look at your passive ability, Whisper. This passive makes Jhin a very unique AD carry because instead of the attack speed reducing your attack speed, it instead gives you bonus attack damage as well as your critical strike doing the same thing. You then also only have 4 shots before you have to reload, which will take 2.5 seconds. The 4th shot is also guaranteed to critically strike, which will deal bonus physical damage based on the target's missing health. Whenever Jhin then critically strikes, he will get bonus movement speed for 2 seconds, which can give him some nice mobility since he does really lack it. In the lane phase, try to hit the enemy champion with your 4th shot as much as you can, since it does do a nice chunk of damage. Jhin's Q is Dancing Grenade, and it's great for both harassing and last hitting. When you use this ability, you will shoot a canister at the target enemy and deal physical damage. This grenade then bounces up to 3 additional enemies beyond the first, and each kill it performs increases its total damage by 35%. So this ability is great for harassing the enemy champion, but ideally you want to kill 3 minions with it and have it bounce onto the enemy champion after to deal its maximum damage. Against Cho, it was a level 1 ability, so of course it didn't do much damage against him, but with a good build and on a squishy target, it can do half of their health. Jhin's W is Deadly Flourish, and this allows you to root the enemy champion. In order for this ability to root the enemy champion, they do have to be marked by Caught Out, which is triggered by either your basic attack, your allies, or a Blooming Lotus trap for 4 seconds. When you hit a marked enemy, they will then be rooted for between 0.75 and 1.75 seconds. This ability does also do damage in a line, so it is great for last hitting as well, and it can help you get the minions low enough to clean them up with your Bouncing Grenade. Jhin's E is Captive Audience, and it gives you some nice lane control. These traps will last for 2 minutes and bloom if an enemy walks over them, reveal them, and slow them for 2 seconds. After that duration, it will then deal magic damage to all enemies caught in the explosion. Since this ability provides vision, basically you want to stick it on the sides of your lanes to make sure you're not going to get ganked. Last here we have your very long range ultimate, Curtain Call. This ability has a 3000 range, can be channeled for 10 seconds, and used up to 4 times. It will deal damage to the first enemy champion it collides with, and slow them by 80% for 0.75 seconds. The damage is then also increased by 2.5% for every 1% of the target's missing health, and the final shot will critically strike for 100% increased damage. Use it from a safe distance and destroy the enemy. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then, for its last hitting and very high harassment, you want to max your Q ability, Dancing Grenade. Now these other two abilities are interchangeable, but I usually like to max my W second for its increased root duration. If you do already have some solid CCs on your team, then sometimes it will be better to get your E max second instead for its increased damage. It can do a lot of damage if stuff does stay in the detonation circle. Now we're going to look at a couple good support synergies, and first of course is Zyra. The first reason she works so good with Jhin is the fact that it's very easy to CC with him. She does have fairly long ranges, and Jhin can follow up with a captive audience to chain CC when she does land an ability. Since Jhin does lack mobility, he does require peeling, and Zyra has two ways to peel for him. Both her Grasping Roots and Stranglethorns can give Jhin the peeling he needs to be successful in teamfights. Next here is Zilean, and he's great with Jhin for a completely different reason. Now he's not able to chain CC with Jhin as effectively, but he can save him over and over again with his Time Warp and his Chrono Shift. His Time Warp can easily give Jhin the bonus movement speed he needs to escape a bad situation, and if he is in a really bad one, he can save him with Chrono Shift. Of course, Zilean then also has the ability to chain CC with him if he does land his Time Bombs. The next one here isn't that popular in the support role, but it supports Sion. So the first reason here is the fact that you can easily chain CC with him if he does land his Roar of the Slayer. This will also reduce the enemy's armor, and as long as Jhin can land his captive audience on the slowed target, they can easily all-in that target. Sion's also great with Jhin because it can help peel for him with Decimating Smash as well. As long as the ability is charged long enough, he can pop the target up, and then Jhin can easily reposition. The last one I'm going to talk about here is Vel'Koz. Vel'Koz is great with Jhin simply because there's going to be a stupid amount of poke in that lane. I've been against the Jhin and Vel'Koz lane before, and it's not fun dodging skill shots over and over and over again, and if one lands, they can follow up and go for a kill. It's a very strong bottom lane as well, and as long as you can land your skill shots, it should be a somewhat easy lane. Your main goal in the lane phase is to get as many last hits as you can. Always try and last hit with your auto attacks, but if you need to, use your Dancing Grenade and your Deadly Flourish. If you can, try to get 3 last hits with your Dancing Grenade and have the 4th one bounce to the enemy champion so it will deal a ton of harassment. You'll then want to place your captive audience on the side of your lanes for some lane control and to watch for ganks coming in from the river or lane brush. Finally, you'll want to try to harass the enemy whenever you can. You'll want to try to hit them with your Dancing Grenade and of course your 4th shot since it does do a lot of damage. Before a team fight starts, try to harass the enemy team with your Dancing Grenade and your Deadly Flourish. If you have other long-range champions on your team, then you can also use your Deadly Flourish to root an enemy champion after your teammate lands some damage. This is a great way to pick off an enemy champion and have an advantage in the upcoming team fight. If your team is trying to engage onto the enemy team, then consider helping them with Curtain Call. The shots landed from this ability will slow the targets they hit and help your team get on top of them. It can also soften them up from a very long range to increase your chances of killing them. Before you start your ultimate, you'll want to make sure you drop a captive audience by you so you do have a chance of escaping if an enemy gets on top of you. Now we're going to look at a couple hard matchups, and first up is Vayne. Vayne's going to be a hard matchup for you because of her 1v1 potential and her mobility. If you and Vayne make it to the late game and you do have similar farm, you're absolutely going to get destroyed. You're going to have very limited potential in doing a 1v1 against her. During the lane phase, she can then easily dodge your abilities by just using her tumble. You'll have to try to win in the early and mid game because she will outscale the absolute shit out of you. Do not try to 1v1 her unless you know you are way ahead. Next, of course, is the biggest lane bully of them all, Caitlyn. She's going to use her superior range to poke the crap out of you in the lane phase, and you're really going to have to rely on your support. She then also has very good lane presence just like you, which takes away your advantage. Yet again, against Caitlyn, make sure you avoid 1v1s, keep out of range with your ultimate in teamfights, and kill her that way. For our third hard matchup, we have Ezreal, which is somewhat similar to Vayne in the fact that he can easily 1v1 you in close range, and he does have pretty decent mobility. The lane phase isn't going to be too terribly hard since he does have to go for a tier early on, so try to abuse him in that early game. In the later game, don't ever 1v1 him, and try to fight him from a distance. For our last hard matchup, we have the rat, Twitch. He's really hard for you because if he gets on top of you and he is ahead, he will absolutely destroy you with his ambush and the burst damage he does bring. As I've said a couple times this guide already, you don't really have any mobility, so if he gets on top of you, you don't really have a way of escaping, unless of course you have flash. If he snowballs off you doing these stealth ganks, he has a very strong teamfight potential, and your team's really going to hate you because he's going to delete them all at the same time. If he's ahead, don't go anywhere alone because he will 1v1 the absolute shit out of you. Now let's kick off that item build, and we want to start with a Doran's Blade, Health Potion, and a Warding Totem. For our core build, we have the Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Infinity Edge. Now you still can go for Youmuu's, and about 30% of the pro players seem to do it still, but I'm not a fan at all. I find the Essence Reaver into the Rapid Fire Cannon a much more effective build. This core build will of course give you 30% CDR, a really nice first attack from the Rapid Fire Cannon, and some really solid crit damage. Of course, then you're also going to always have mana because of their mana return from the Essence Reaver. For your boot options, we then have the Boots of Swiftness, Berserker Greaves, and Ionian Boots. He's one of the only AD carries that don't always go for Berserker Greaves because of his passive, of course. Since he really lacks mobility, I basically always go for the Boots of Swiftness on Jhin. It's a very effective purchase. For your item pool, first we of course have those armor penetration items in the LDR and the Mortal Reminder. I pretty much always go for the LDR, but if there is champions that abuse healing, then you'll want to go for the Mortal Reminder. Next we have our lifesteal options in the Bloodthirster and the Mercurial Scimitar. Bloodthirster is definitely my favorite of the two, but if you do need to break CCs, then you have no choice but to go for the Mercurial. Maw is still a pretty damn good item on Jhin. I don't get it as often as I used to, of course, with that armor penetration build, but it's still an effective buy. If we want more attack speed and 100% crit, we could go for the Phantom Dancer, but generally after my core, I like to get some lifesteal and some armor penetration, so I don't take it too often myself. For the final item in the pool, of course, is that Guardian Angel, if you do need to come back to life in the later game. But for our example full build, we take our core build, get the Boots of Swiftness, then an LDR, and a Mercurial Scimitar. We will do an absolute ton of damage, have that armor penetration we need in the later game, and we can even break a CC from the Mercurial. It's a very solid build, and pretty much the one I always go for. The only thing I really change is the Bloodthirster and the Mercurial Scimitar if I don't need that CC break. But that, ladies and gentlemen, covers everything I've got for AD Carry Jhin in Season 7. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to all of my social medias for more of my content. I do also do Riot Point giveaways on my Twitter, so that's one you guys should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching the video. I hope you guys did learn something new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!